Hi, Kelly.
Hello.
So this is going to be the breakfast critique.
Okay.
Okay. So you and I just recorded a little clip,
hmm
kind of intro why we're collaborating and how we want to collaborate to make a difference for people with PCOS. And I'm just a big loud mouth, and you're actually an expert.
I don't know.
You're a you are the Grand Poobah registered dietitian who has a whole team of them that is deployed across the country. Um, as you know, I preach food is health. I hate the word preach, but I do think sometimes that's how it comes across. And in fact, this morning I had a bit of a mea culpa on myself because I had this amazing concoction of a breakfast, which I want you to critique and also
Okay.
I just want to talk through it. But what really struck me about it was when I looked at it, I thought, why do I get to eat this? And the majority of other people in this country they can't. They don't have access to this financially or time wise, right? Like this was a labor of love that brought me to my breakfast that I'll show you. And yes, there's some stuff we could do to make it simpler and all that. But it also just made me think this food is health objective of affordable nutrition and nutrient dense at scale, like it's so imperative, right? Because I don't want people to see what we're going to do here and think, well, that's great. I could afford maybe one item sitting by that plate. So what I want to do is talk more about the different items and what they're doing. And you used this hilarious leprechaun and pot
Analogy.
of gold analogy, which I
Yeah.
loved around an insulin resistance. So let's talk just a little bit. Can you give us a little bit of information on insulin resistance? Because it plays such a key role in PCOS. And then
Yes.
I'll put up my picture of my breakfast.
Okay. So the deal with insulin is a hormone. Insulin is made by the pancreas, and insulin is not the enemy. Insulin is actually what goes into our blood, grabs those angry leprechauns, kind of links arms, and is the key to getting that sugar into the cell for energy. Okay. So if, for instance, in lots of different ways, like in PCOS or type 2 diabetes, what can happen is my aunt is she's a type 2 diabetic, or sorry, she's an educator. She's actually one of the head dietitians for Novo Nordisk, Ozempic.
Wow.
And she gave me this great analogy years ago. She said having insulin resistance is like having a door that the hinges got rusty and like the door just like won't open really well. Okay. And like the keys like kind of stuck. Like it's just something's not quite right. Like you were saying in the last one, like something's not quite right. So that's kind of like, and so like the door's either not opening all the way or the key's not working so that sugar can't get into the cells. So then it's circling around causing major inflammation. And then insulin's other job is to get and store that extra carbohydrate down in our liver or in this different muscle tissue and things like that. So that's where insulin resistance is like that. When you can reduce those simple sugars, reduce the angry leprechauns, that is kind of like WD-40 on the hinges and on that lock. So we can start to like open it better and the door will swing open better. That makes sense?
It does make sense. It does make
Okay.
sense.
So basically, like you're saying, food is health. Food is health, but people don't know how to do that as food is health. So, for instance, for breakfast, as we'll see what you had, but I had a piece of whole grain, like, multigrain whole grain toast with some avocado with some eggs this morning. So, with that avocado, with that toast, I'm getting fiber rich sources that come into the body and kind of clean all that up, kind of that WD-40, and then that protein source coming in. But it is about the combination. So when you have the protein, like from the eggs, for instance, and then you have like the avocado, there we go. There's your picture. You're getting this combination. And I love that you have the combination here. So people always think it's just like one thing or whatever. Going back to that, like I said, the fertility doctor who said, don't have any carbs at all. No, 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 no. There's a combination of all of these things together, from our B vitamins to vitamin E, vitamin C. There's Again, the fat source coming from the avocado so you can absorb vitamin A, D, E, and K. Like there's a whole bunch of things happening in this science experiment that I see on in this picture here.
Yeah, so I have to give you a little context, and people that are watching this, a little context as to like this whole thing is, so I did, I have some fun genetic mutations that in essence cause my body not to detox bad stuff very easily. So the bad leprechauns for me really win the day because my body fights harder. It doesn't have as many good guys to get the leprechauns right in check.
Mhm.
And so I did a pretty extensive 2 week focus on kind of detoxing and going through a hardcore cycle of autophagy, which is cellular restoration, which we'll do another episode on. We won't do that right now. But I'm a big believer in being very proactive, using food, using food timing, all of that stuff to really try and prime my body that way, not just exercise or whatever.
Mhm.
So after that, though, the doctor that was part of this, he's very particular about what you then put back in, because the point is you spend 2 weeks basically kind of getting rid of everything, which in essence is similar to when we talk about antibiotics, like, right, you got rid of all the good and the bad.
Yes.
It's a similar thing with a detox. And so then once you're done, you've kind of got this like perfect clean space that has no good and no bad, and you've got to refeed it. You've got to refeed your microbiome and reset it.
Yep.
And I had this real profound epiphany. I've kind of done similar things, but not to this extent. And afterwards, it just, for whatever reason, this additional, it was like the bright light went on the light switch. And I'm like, oh, this is like a really great opportunity to like make my gut super healthy. And so then I like got on this. So my husband calls our refrigerator right now like a place for liquids and foods, because he's like, I don't know what that potion is in that jar or whatever, but
Yep.
I've got a lot of fermented foods and a lot of different things. And so I'm just really experimenting with this. So what you won't know from this, so there's kind of two items on here specifically around that, and not even the good culture cottage cheese. I have this bias where I love that they're putting cultures in it, but I sort of have this thing of like when it's totally factory done, I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical about just how much culture is actually in there, but whatever. So I'm kind of doing my own thing there. But the this is actually roasted pears and figs.
Mm.
So I got fresh figs and pears because they were both on sale at the store, and because it's fall. And then I had some rosemary, and and there was a recipe that called for roasting the figs and the pears I used just a little bit of coconut sugar, that's not processed. And then, for like a long time, and then put some rosemary sprigs on it while I was roasting it. So it created this kind of like sweet, savory mouthful. And then how I created this concoction is the bottom layer is actually a sourdough from a local baker who makes, like, he ferments all of his breads at least overnight. So it's a pretty gut friendly bread, super thin sliced. I've got the cottage cheese. No, then I have a really thin layer of that cashew butter, like super
Mhm.
thin. Like I don't even know if I have a full teaspoon on both pieces, but if there's just like a piece to it. And then I have about probably a heaping tablespoon on each one of pumpkin puree. And then I've got the cottage cheese, and I would say probably all told, maybe a half a cup between the two slices. And then the pears and the figs. And then I have the superfood honey is actually it's got royal jelly in it and pollen. So I'm doing it a lot for the
Local
benefits.
allergies. Yeah.
Yeah, and just exactly the gut. And then finally I've got nutmeg, which funny enough, we went on a vacation and there were nutmeg trees. And the guy was like, we were in Granada, and he's like, you have to take some of these nutmeg pods. And my husband's like, what are you going to really? And I have finally started grading them I'm so excited. I've kept them for 2 years, Kelly. I'm finally grading them. So there's like some of that fresh nutmeg. So there you go. That's the concoction. So let's hear it. How could I have done better? What is this doing for my gut? What would this do for insulin resistance? How can I do better with, if I've got PCOS or just trying to take care of myself?
No, this is absolutely perfect. There is no do better. This is great. And I also want to address the food access. So, right now, in multiple states across the United States, there is a thing called the 1115 waiver. And people that have Medicaid can actually get foods like these delivered to their house if they qualify. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people know. And we're trying to get the word out just here in New York State. It just really started getting launched. And we're able to get foods like this to people's houses that may not have been able to have access. So I just want to put that out there. That's kind of an exciting
Awesome.
time that these types of foods are going to be available in the way of produce boxes and food boxes and medically tailored meals. So just, kind of a really neat thing. And I hope that that program does really well. We're hoping it does so that it stays in existence. But this is a great way that we are getting, live cultures, like you said, getting in protein, getting in that whole grain. My husband has been obsessed with sourdough. We have every attachment under the sun right now. But then again, like you said, cost savings wise, if you're making those own things in your house, if you're growing pears in your backyard, if you're able to go to the local market and get your honey, I mean, these are all things that can be accessible, and throughout, the pumpkin is so affordable. So
So
these are
affordable.
so these are actually things that can be really great. Again, it goes back to education on how to put it together or how to make sourdough bread, because you go to buy sourdough right now at our local Wegmans, it's around $10 a loaf, and we're making it for cents, right? Like cents. Like it's
Yes. Yes.
so this is where, again, I think that there's so much that we can do in the way of education, in the way of recipes, in the way of how do we put this together. But people always tell me it's too expensive to eat healthy. And I'm like, it is not. There's
No.
so many resources and there's so many things that you can do right in your own house. But sourdough is a big one. I mean, literally
So
going from
tell me,
$dollars down to a
yeah,
dollar.
no, because it's also popular, and I will say that the organic cashew butter is from my co-op. So
Yeah,
I'm part of a food co-op in my community, and so this cashew butter was made by somebody in my community
that's right.
and then by being a member of it, I get a discount of it. So to your point, and then I made what's not in here is I made cashew milk for the first time. It's so
Mhm.
easy. I
Well,
threw a couple handfuls of, I got the cashews at Costco, organic raw cashews from Costco. They were so inexpensive. I mean, like they were not expensive, right? And for the amount that I received,
right.
and then I soaked those cashews overnight. Like I literally threw them in, just dumped water on them, went to bed, got up this morning, threw the water out, threw them in the blender, threw more water, made it as creamy as I wanted. And it's beautiful. I have this thing of cashew milk and it probably cost me, I don't know, like 75 cents with how many cashews I used,
But
right?
that, again, I think that there's a lot. I get asked that question so many times, and you really you can do it on such a budget, and you can even make your own cottage cheese. Like I was really lucky. I had a back when my kids were little, I worked at Cornell Cooperative Extension, and one of the nutritionists there came to be my babysitter, which was the best thing in the world. She used to make these types of foods in our house. Like she'd make homemade yogurt because she actually had 10 children. She birthed 10 children. So when she was with me, she would make some foods that she could take home. But her name's Becky, and I still love her to the day. She was a true godsend. But she showed me how you can make a lot of these foods and do it on a budget too, but
So
also
let's
putting it together.